The rain lashed against my bedroom window, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. It was a typical dreary Tuesday in suburban Ohio, but for me, it felt monumental. My phone buzzed, a text from my brother, Mark. "Hey, did Dad talk to you about the college fund? I need to look at tuition options." I snorted. Mark, always so earnest, so by the book. He truly believed in that fund, in his future, in the American dream. Little did he know, his future had just been reallocated to my feet. Just yesterday, a simple, masterful manipulation of Dad had secured my latest conquest, a pair of black Gucci loafers with the iconic horsebit detail. They were exquisite, a work of art, and utterly necessary for my image. It started innocently enough. A casual remark about how I needed them for a networking event, how they were an investment in my career. Dad, bless his naive heart, was always susceptible to my charm, especially when I framed things as self-improvement. He'd sighed, rubbed his temples, and then, with a hesitant nod, agreed to borrow from Mark's fund, promising to replace it soon. Soon in Dad's vocabulary usually meant never, and I knew it. A thrill of victory shot through me. The new shoes were waiting in their sleek white box, a testament to my power. Mark's text felt like a minor inconvenience, easily dismissed. I stared at the message for a moment, a mischievous smile spreading across my face. Then, with a flick of my thumb, I typed, "Dad let me buy Gucci shoes using your college fund." The words hung in the digital air, a declaration of my audacious triumph. I watched the 3 dots dance, indicating he was typing. A perverse excitement bubbled within me. This was going to be fun. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more captivating tales. Mark's reply was instantaneous and predictably furious. "What? Sarah, you can't be serious. That's my future. Our parents worked so hard for that." His outrage fueled my amusement. He was so transparent, so predictable. I imagined his face, red with disbelief, probably pacing his tiny dorm room at the state university. "Oh, calm down, Mark. It's not like I spent all of it," I texted back, a lie that tasted sweet on my tongue. The truth was, I had made a significant dent, enough to make his upcoming tuition payments a serious problem. But he didn't need to know that. Not yet. My apartment, though rented, was meticulously curated to project an image of effortless sophistication. Every piece of furniture, every trinket, every designer bag artfully displayed, whispered tales of a life I desperately craved. The Gucci shoes, now gracing my feet, completed the ensemble. I strolled to the full-length mirror, admiring my reflection. The shoes were perfect, making my legs look longer, my stride more confident. They were more than just shoes. They were a symbol of my ability to get what I wanted, regardless of the cost to others. My phone buzzed again. It was Mom this time. "Sarah, what is this about Mark's college fund? Your father just called me in a panic." A faint tremor of unease snaked through me. Mom was the harder nut to crack. Dad was easily swayed by a sob story or a promise of future repayment, but Mom saw right through my charades. Her practicality was a constant thorn in my side. I considered ignoring her, but that would only make things worse. Best to face it head on, with a healthy dose of feigned innocence. "Oh, Mom, it's just a misunderstanding," I typed, already formulating my next masterpiece of deception. The rain outside continued its relentless drumming, and for a fleeting moment, I wondered if this storm was just beginning. The ensuing phone call with Mom was a masterclass in deflection and emotional manipulation. I painted myself as the victim of circumstances, a young woman striving for success in a competitive world, misunderstood and unfairly judged. "Mom, these shoes are for job interviews, important networking events. How am I supposed to climb the ladder if I don't look the part?" I wailed. injecting just the right amount of desperation into my voice. I even managed a sniffle or two, though no actual tears were shed. Mom, despite her usual resilience, eventually softened. Her stern questions gave way to sighs of resignation. "Sarah, you really need to think about the consequences," she warned, but the bite was gone from her tone. Victory. Later that evening, the sky had cleared, revealing a brilliant star-studded canvas. I was out with my friends, sipping overpriced cocktails at a trendy bar, the Gucci loafers gleaming under the ambient lights. My phone, thankfully, was silent. I regaled them with a heavily edited version of the day's events, portraying myself as a clever strategist who had outwitted a forgetful father and a whiny brother. They laughed, impressed by my audacity, never questioning the ethics of my actions. This was my world, a world where appearances mattered more than anything, and where I was the undisputed queen of superficiality. As the night wore on, a fleeting image of Mark flashed through my mind. His earnest face, the genuine excitement in his eyes when he talked about his future. A flicker of something that might have been guilt, or perhaps just mild discomfort, stirred within me. But it was quickly extinguished. He would figure it out. He always did. He was resourceful. Besides, I deserved these shoes. I worked hard for my image, for the life I wanted. And if a little borrowing was necessary, well, that was just the price of ambition. The clinking of glasses and the murmur of laughter drowned out any lingering doubts. Tomorrow was another day, and I was already planning my next move. The calm after the storm was short-lived. A week later, the full weight of my borrowing came crashing down. It started with a frantic call from Mark. "Sarah, I just got a notice from the university. My tuition payment is due, and the fund is almost empty. What did you do?" His voice was raw with panic, and for the first time, a genuine chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just about a pair of shoes anymore. This was about Mark's entire semester, his academic future hanging by a thread. The carefully constructed façade of indifference I usually wore began to crack. I tried to brush him off, to minimize the situation. "It's not that bad, Mark. Dad will figure it out. He promised to put it back." But even as I said the words, they rang hollow. I knew Dad was struggling financially. He'd been laid off from his job a few months ago, and while he'd found temporary work, it was barely enough to cover the bills, let alone replace a significant chunk of a college fund. The vibrant colors of my world seemed to dim, replaced by a cold, stark reality. Later that day, I received a text from Dad, short and to the point. "We need to talk, all of us, tonight." The finality of his message sent a jolt of fear through me. This wasn't a request. It was an order. I knew what was coming. The reckoning. The exposure of my deceit. My perfect, carefully crafted image was about to shatter, and I had nobody to blame but myself. The rain returned, a soft, persistent drizzle, mirroring the slow, cold dread seeping into my heart. My Gucci shoes, once a symbol of triumph, now felt heavy, a burdensome reminder of my selfish choices. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more captivating tales. The family meeting was a nightmare. The air in our small living room was thick with tension, each silence more damning than the last. Mom sat with her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of disappointment and weary resignation. Dad, usually so jovial, looked defeated, his eyes red-rimmed and filled with a pain that pierced even my hardened shell. Mark, pale and trembling, simply stared at me, his gaze a raw accusation. I tried to maintain my composure, to conjure up another lie, another excuse, but the words wouldn't come. The weight of their collective disappointment was suffocating. "Sarah," Dad began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your mother and I have been talking. The college fund, it's gone. Completely. We don't have the money to replace it right now, Mark won't be able to go back to school next semester. His words hung in the air, a death knell to Mark's dreams and to my illusion of invincibility. My stomach lurched. Gone? Completely? I had truly underestimated the damage I had caused. A wave of nausea washed over me, and for the first time, I felt a genuine tremor of fear. Mark finally spoke, his voice hoarse with emotion. "How could you, Sarah? How could you be so selfish? This was my only chance. Our parents worked their entire lives for this, for us." His pain was palpable, a physical blow. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw not just anger, but a profound heartbreak. The reality of my actions, the devastation I had wrought, finally hit me with the force of a freight train. The shiny, superficial world I had built for myself crumbled around me, leaving only the bitter taste of regret and the crushing weight of my mistakes. The Gucci shoes, still on my feet, felt like lead anchors, dragging me down into an abyss of my own making. The days that followed were a blur of cold shoulders, whispered conversations, and the crushing silence of a fractured family. Mark refused to speak to me, his door remaining firmly shut whenever I tried to approach. Mom's once gentle eyes now held a steely glint of disapproval, and her words were clipped, devoid of the usual warmth. Dad retreated into himself, spending hours in his study, the faint glow of his computer screen the only sign of life. The once vibrant house felt like a mausoleum, each room echoing with the unspoken resentment and despair. I tried to apologize, to explain, to offer to get a job and pay it back. But my words fell on deaf ears. They knew I was only saying what they wanted to hear, a desperate attempt to mend what I had so carelessly broken. The truth was, I had no idea how I would ever earn back that money. My part-time retail job barely covered my own expenses, let alone a college tuition. The glamour of my life, the illusion of success I had so meticulously cultivated, was gone. My friends, sensing the shift in my circumstances, slowly drifted away. The calls stopped, the invitations dwindled. It seemed my friends were only interested in the Sarah who had the latest designer items and the most exciting stories of manipulation. One evening, I found myself staring at the Gucci shoes, now discarded in a corner of my room. They no longer held any allure. They were a stark reminder of my monumental mistake, a symbol of everything I had lost. The thrill of owning them had long faded, replaced by a hollow ache in my chest. The rain outside had stopped, but a different kind of storm raged within me, a storm of self-loathing, regret, and the bitter realization that I had traded something truly valuable for something utterly meaningless. The silence of the house pressed in on me, a constant heavy weight. I was alone, truly alone, and it was a loneliness I had brought upon myself. The days bled into weeks, and the chasm between me and my family only widened. Mark moved out, opting to stay with a friend while he figured out his next steps. His departure was a fresh wound, a tangible representation of the damage I had done. I saw him once by chance at a grocery store. He saw me too, and his eyes, once filled with brotherly affection, now held only a cold, empty sadness. He turned and walked away without a word, leaving me standing amidst the brightly lit aisles, a solitary figure consumed by the shadows of my guilt. My attempts to find a better-paying job proved futile. My resume, filled with superficial achievements and lacking any real substance, was easily dismissed. The world, it seemed, was not as easily manipulated as my family. Landlords rejected my applications for apartments, citing my lack of consistent income and poor credit history. The carefully constructed facade of my life was crumbling, piece by piece, revealing the precariousness of my existence. I was slowly but surely losing everything: my family, my friends, my illusion of independence. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the university addressed to Mark. It was a notice of withdrawal. He wouldn't be returning. My hands trembled as I read the words, each one a dagger to my heart. He was truly gone from that path, and it was my fault. I looked around my increasingly desolate apartment, the designer bags gathering dust, the Gucci shoes still abandoned in the corner. They no longer mocked me. They simply existed, lifeless and inert, much like my dreams. The once vivid world I had inhabited had faded to a dull gray, a reflection of the emptiness I felt inside. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more captivating tales. The final blow came unexpectedly, delivered with the quiet efficiency of official paperwork, an eviction notice. My landlord, tired of my inconsistent payments and broken promises, had finally run out of patience. I stood there, staring at the brightly colored notice, the words blurring before my eyes. No more meticulously curated apartment, no more pretense of a glamorous life. I was truly out on my own, with nowhere to go. My parents, still reeling from Mark's situation and their own financial struggles, had made it clear there was no room for me at home, both literally and figuratively. Panic, cold and suffocating, seized me. Where would I go? What would I do? The reality of my situation, stripped bare of all illusions, was terrifying. I had always relied on my charm, my ability to manipulate, to get by. But now, those tools were useless. There was no one left to charm, no one left to manipulate. I was truly alone, a pariah in my own life. I began packing, stuffing my designer clothes and accessories into cheap cardboard boxes, the irony of the situation not lost on me. The very items I had once coveted, the symbols of my supposed success, now felt like a heavy burden. As I packed, my hand brushed against the Gucci shoes. I picked them up, their sleek leather cool against my skin. They were still beautiful, still exquisitely crafted, but their beauty was a lie, a veneer over the ugly truth of my choices. I stared at them for a long moment, a profound emptiness settling in my chest. They hadn't brought me happiness or success, or even the fleeting satisfaction I had hoped for. They had only brought ruin. With a sigh, I placed them gently into a box, not with the reverence I once held, but with a sense of finality. They were just shoes, after all, and I had paid a price far too high for them. Homeless and desperate, I found myself navigating the harsh realities of the city streets. The cold, impersonal concrete became my bed, a thin cardboard sheet my only blanket. The constant hum of traffic was my new lullaby, punctuated by the occasional siren wail that sliced through the night. The once familiar cityscape, a breathtaking panorama from the window of my luxury apartment, now seemed menacing and indifferent. It was a labyrinth of indifferent strangers, their faces a blur of averted gazes and hurried steps. Hunger was a constant, gnawing presence in my stomach, a persistent emptiness that no amount of wishful thinking could fill. It was a physical ache that overshadowed every other thought. The constant fear of the unknown chipped away at my remaining sanity. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every approaching footstep sent a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. I, Sarah, the girl who always had to have the best, was now reduced to scrounging for food and shelter. My carefully cultivated designer-clad image was a distant, painful memory. The lessons were brutal and unforgiving. The value of a warm meal was no longer a given. It was a desperate quest, a triumph of survival. A safe place to sleep was a luxury, a brief respite from the ever-present danger. The simple kindness of a stranger, a shared sandwich, or a moment of eye contact, was a lifeline I now desperately craved. The superficiality of my past life seemed like a distant, cruel joke. My expensive clothes, once a source of pride, now marked me as an easy target, quickly stolen or bartered for a few meager dollars. I learned to blend in, to become invisible, to shed the outward signs of the person I once was. One particularly cold night, huddled in a doorway, I saw a familiar face pass by. It was Mark. He was walking with a purposeful stride, a backpack slung over his shoulder. He looked tired, but there was a quiet resilience in his posture, a quiet strength that I had never noticed before. He was still pursuing his dreams, albeit through a different, harder path. My heart ached with a longing to call out to him, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. But I couldn't. I was a ghost, a shadow of my former self, and he deserved better than the wreckage I had become. The city lights blurred through the tears stinging my eyes, a final, painful reminder of the life I had so carelessly thrown away. Months turned into a year, and the harsh realities of my new life had etched themselves onto my face. Lines of weariness deepened around my eyes, and my once vibrant gaze was now hollow and guarded. The once confident Sarah was gone, replaced by a hardened, humbled woman. I had found work, menial jobs washing dishes or bussing tables that paid just enough to keep me from starvation. There was no escape from the relentless cycle of poverty, but I no longer sought it. The lessons learned on the streets were etched into my very being: resilience, humility, and the true value of human connection, something I had so recklessly discarded. One day, while working at a soup kitchen, I saw him again. Dad. He was older, his hair grayer, but his eyes still held that familiar, gentle sadness. He didn't see me, not at first. He was volunteering, serving food to the homeless, his actions a testament to the man he had always been. Kind, compassionate, forgiving. A profound wave of shame washed over me, a physical ache in my chest, but it was followed by an unexpected surge of hope. This was my chance to finally face the music, to truly atone for my sins. I approached him, my voice trembling as I called his name. He turned, and for a long moment, his eyes, once filled with disappointment, now held a flicker of recognition, then shock. We talked, and I poured out my heart, confessing every selfish act, every manipulative lie, every ounce of regret. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I simply offered the raw, unvarnished truth. His response wasn't immediate, but in his quiet gaze, I saw something shift. A spark of understanding, perhaps even a hint of the love he once had for me. The road to redemption would be long and arduous, but for the first time in a very long time, I felt a faint glimmer of hope. The Gucci shoes, a distant memory, no longer held any power over me. My true worth, I realized, lay not in designer labels, but in the arduous journey of rebuilding my shattered life, one honest step at a time. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more captivating tales.